Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Jason.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
You know, Joel, while the music was playing, I was trying to think back. When was the last time we didn't mention the law of action? I'm thinking it's years.
It has to be. I mean, it's the fundamental thing of everything I believe. So
Yeah.
I bring it up a lot.
Yeah. So this is again, Jen, my VA. This is the idea she came up with that we should talk about this today. Jen, just so you know, we actually talk about this all the time. We'll be happy to dive into it a little bit more. But just basically check any of our old episodes and you'll find it. It's right there.
I think every episode it gets mentioned. To me and why it matters different than obviously I'm on that working on my book for the law of action book.
I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, do we have like a release date coming up anytime soon?
It is Chat GPT is helping me organize it and breaking it down. My problem was never the material. I had 3,000 pages of material.
That's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying. I'm doing a really good job. It's not writing it for me, but it is going and it's helping me put it in the chapters because I just brain dump. I probably have 5 books in there. So so we're coming up with book 1, Law of Action, and I do think that at the rate we're going, I'll have it by summer. So yeah.
Well, that would be great.
Yeah. So it's really good, and I since I sort of implemented it and explained the problem, and so it's really good at helping me. There's 10 or 12 chapters, and they're all relevant. Getting the right stories. It's a group of stories with commentary and stuff like that. So sort of like if you read my first book, it's a little different. That was more biographical. This is more of a explaining the law of action. But to me, one of the things that you and I, when we first started talking about the law of attraction years ago, and we both were trying to figure out the concepts, there's a lot of information, and not everybody, even though we all generally agree on the concepts of the law of attraction, some of the intricacies are different in who believes them and who doesn't, and what they entail. Mm-hmm. So, the fundamental thing for me was I had never, ever, I'm not saying it's possible, but I have never been successful using the law of attraction and not taking action to match. To me, the law of attraction is engaged with the action. It almost doesn't matter what the action is, but I have to be taking action. Mm-hmm. Doing something, have a goal. I've never been the guy that sat on the couch and showed up. A guy with $1 million check showed up. That never has happened.
Right.
But
not much of anything else showed up either.
Nothing else showed up. Yeah, I was never able to do anything with that concept. And I'm not claiming that other people can't, but a lot goes with what I believe. So I'm a believer that action is necessary, even if it is if it's not the right action. Mm-hmm. Just some form of action begins a process. So that the universe can conspire with you when you begin an action. I use the GPS analogy all the time. When you get in your car, and the only time your Waze app or whatever app you use is not going to work is if you don't move. Even if you go in the wrong direction, you'll get corrected and routed the way to go. But the inaction or lack of action makes the app irrelevant and it doesn't work. So that's sort of with life. So action-based concept, bypassing the fear and the inability to start and take the action, is how the law of attraction has always worked for me. So that's sort of the overall concept.
Right. And that's definitely the concept you bring up pretty much every week.
Every week,
It's been a week when you haven't brought it up at one point or another. And I love it. I agree with it. I think it's a fabulous thing. It actually came up in, as you know, I do 2 shows on Monday. The earlier show, the guest was a young woman who was in a severe auto accident when she was, I believe, in college. And among other things, recovering from the accident helped to uncover some depression issues that she had never really addressed before that. So she went through therapy and basically it was the conversation of what she learned about how important it is to develop mindset and so forth. It made for a great conversation. But one of the things that I touched on, I kept thinking about you and what you like to talk about regarding law of action, what you just said. And I picked out of what she told us and said, here are all the examples of how you decided, instead of just staying with where you were at, because you could have just not progress at all, you decide you wanted to get better. You decide you wanted to move forward. So you not only took action within your therapeutic setting, but you actually changed therapeutic settings. She told how she had changed therapists like 4 or 5 times trying to find the right one because she was so committed to making things happen. So to me, that was just another example of the action made all the difference in the world in terms of her healing. She's a big advocate of the therapy. I think it was more the action she took.
I agree. I would, and however we got there, I'm really happy for her that she found an effective way to do it. But my perspective would be the action, the repeated action, the adjusting action, or whatever you want to call that. Eventually, she was determined, took the action, and then found success. That the action piece is what engaged it. It was, in my mind.
And I think it is to a large extent in her mind as well, because she told us one of the therapists that she left behind in the dust was a therapist who basically was saying there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing you don't have anything here that you need to work on. Just keep coming. It's kind of pointless, really.
Yeah, wow.
And then she proceeded to talk about the next therapist who insisted that if she came and she wasn't working, then she was just wasting the therapist's time. So it was like a 180-degree flip.
Right.
And the second form that's the one that I put into alignment with taking action. I mean, action can be physical action, but it can also be mental action. And that's mental action.
Yeah, absolutely. And the concepts, I get into either, when I talk about the law of action, I often incorporate a lot of and I talk about other books a lot that influenced me in the new book, but Atomic Habits combined with my action theory, by breaking down your action into the most basic, minute movements, action becomes easy. When you look at the concept of walking up 1,000-step staircase, that's overwhelming. But you're like, wow, I can't do that. But one step is something you can easily do, and then another step. And so breaking everything down into the most minute next step, and then no other step matters but that next step, and then you gain momentum, and then you're able to do that. So not only taking action, but within the action, once you know where you're going, break it down to the next step. Always be moving forward. Doesn't mean there's always forward progress. So, some action may even yield a negative return for a moment, but it's still action as long as you keep applying.
And it's the application that makes the difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of my favorite things that a company does, Amazon. I don't want to turn my camera, but I got my Amazon delivery today, and they're here every day. So I'm a big Amazon fan, and one of the things that they have pasted all over their warehouses is have a bias toward action.
Really, I don't do that. Okay.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter what, if you have nothing to do and there's no supervisor around, find something, do something, pick up a broom, just have a bias toward action, keep the company moving, whatever it takes, help somebody else, have a bias toward action.
Interesting. I was not aware of that. That's very interesting. I'm hopeful that the Amazon view isn't just about what I used to call busy work, because there's a tendency that sometimes happens, particularly in corporate environments, where that particular line is pushed and it turns into, well, just look busy. Don't be productive. Just, as long as you look busy, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, no, that I have never worked for Amazon. My hope is, like you're saying, it's not about picking up a broom to sweep something that doesn't need to be swept. I hope it's about, what is the next, what needs to be done? Is there a guy running behind getting his boxes there? Can I go there and help him until you have more direction? If you have nothing to do, let's be helpful. Let's have a bias toward movement and action, not running and hiding or just standing there and doing nothing. And sometimes that might be all you can do. I also have worked at jobs, minimum wage jobs over the years. And like you're saying, they just wanted you to be wiping something or just for the sake of moving. And that was very unproductive and very
counterproductive, I would say. I would say it actually works against productivity because you're taking action with no benefit out of it.
Right. So, but the concept in your life, of writing a book or getting a job or whatever's going on, the action piece. And I'm a big mindset guy, as you know. I mean, you need the right mindset. You need all. It's not just solely action, but it is a combination of mindset and action that, to me, and I can only speak for me, has made I have found the wheelhouse for me. Whatever I want to do, I have zero doubt I can do it or make
Right.
happen.
Yeah.
And you know me, I often take the absolute most ridiculous, stupid action in the wrong direction, but I use that to get started. It's just
Mhm.
I need to roll, and then I get going. Like, okay, now I need to get more focused, and that's what works for me.
Well, what you figured out is that it doesn't really matter what direction you're going in. It's even if it's 180 degrees the wrong direction, it's still the right direction
Yeah,
because you took the action and you're getting redirected to where you need to go.
yes,
So you basically you kind of took the long way around to get started, is what it amounted to.
yeah, absolutely. And also, I've not to be redundant on telling the same stories over and over again, but everything in my life, it seemed like one thing led to the other. Some action put me in a position that led me to another action. It almost seemed like it was orchestrated.
Mm.
When I left Florida to go to South Carolina to work at a treatment center that we opened up there, uh, it didn't seem like I didn't want to go. It didn't seem to work. Then I fell in love with a place that we were very successful. Then I would never want to leave there, like I didn't want to leave Florida. And then the opportunity in Virginia, it's like it came along, and things just kept. The process kept pushing me along, and I never understood it. But in retrospect, everything worked out absolutely perfectly. It couldn't have
Mm.
worked out any better. It's like it was orchestrated the entire time.
Yeah, the orchestration piece is a fascinating one because the orchestrator, I mean, well, depending on what your belief system is, many people believe in God, so they're going to say that God is the orchestrator. It's not in match with what I believe, although it's not completely in disagreement either. But regardless of what you think the orchestrator is, for my view, you're the orchestrator. Just because you have an idea in mind, you have a desire, something that you're pursuing, and you're taking the action steps. Well, that
Absolutely.
combination alone is going to move you along. But there's also the energy that goes along with that. You and I were talking about energy before we got started. It was in a different context, but we were talking about how energy is not only influential, but how we influence the energy. And when we take the right action, or when we take any action, and when we are thinking even about taking the action, when we're in some way engaged with the idea of taking the action, we're building an energy that has impact in ways that, I mean, honestly, to my mind, I'm still blown away at how powerful we are in that regard. We
Well,
produce results that blow my mind.
absolutely. One of the things that I do, uh, besides meeting with people, I also do consulting, generally with addiction treatment centers, and
Yeah.
helping them get a program up and running. And years ago, my most famous example, there's a program in Atlanta that I was consulting with, and the guy calls me and he says, "Look, I cannot seem to get our IOP running. That's a standard for intensive outpatient program.
Okay.
There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of due diligence. It's a very complicated process, and it's also setting up, in theory, several different therapists will see multiple people through the day, and you got to coordinate all that. And
Okay.
it's not inpatient, but it's intensive outpatient. You see multiple people a day and run various groups. So between the paperwork and the coordination. So the guy said, we can't get this started. He said, is it possible that he was talking to me in April a few years back? Is it possible to get this running by June? I said, oh yeah, it's possible. So I actually flew down there. I looked at everything, got all the paperwork, got my team started on the paperwork side. And so let's say it was Monday, whatever, it was a Monday, and he was expecting, giving me a couple months. I said, Monday we will go live. We're going to do it. We're going to
I
set it
love
up.
this.
Yeah, yeah. And he's like, no, 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 no. I said, we got it. I had a group of patients. What I did was we had 7 patients. I contacted them and said, look, our program is brand new. And this is an expensive program to be
Mm,
going to. I said, we're going to let you come here for free. You're going to be our beta testers.
mm.
And I want you to tell me what you like about the program. You're going to get the same quality treatment. It may not be as organized, but by the time you leave, you'll get the same treatment you would have gotten if you'd have paid for it. And you'll be part of our testing process, and you'll help me find the flaws in the flow. And it worked exactly as I planned.
That's going to work beautifully.
Yeah, yeah. And we were, and I would love to say day one it was perfect. It was a train wreck day one. But but I knew it would be a train wreck. I took the train wreck and figured out along the way where are the steps that were getting clogged up in, and we were able to fix that. And
It occurs to me what you are describing as a process is extremely close to how software development works.
Ah,
Because in software development, you write some code and you're certainly hoping that the code is going to work beautifully, but it almost never does.
right.
What you end up doing is running it and it breaks here, and then you write again and it breaks here, and then you break here and break here, and then it went back to breaking the first one, and then you broke the third one again, and then you're trying to jump back and forth. Why am I breaking those two all over again? Oh, it's this fourth thing over here.
Right.
You're constantly fixing stuff like that. And so it seems like that train wreck you're talking about,
Yeah.
until you finally get to the point where you remove all the train wreck and it ran.
Yeah, it ran. And then and then you perfect it. You keep perfecting. I'm always about implement and adjust. Implement, adjust. Implement, adjust. And anytime there's a change, let's implement it. Let's see let's stress the system. See what I sort of developed that concept from a friend of mine. He explained, when I was younger, I always knew the term engineer.
Mm.
And I said, what does an engineer do? I mean, I know a train engineer, but I'm talking about like a mechanical engineer. And he explained it in a really cool way. He said, everything has a system. He said, you got most things input and there's an output. And along the way, we engineer the process, whatever that looks like, we engineer that. And he said, so a lot of times he said, imagine you have a big boiler system that heats a gigantic building, you have the steam running through the thing. So if something breaks or falls apart, you got to find out where the flaw in the system is. So you stress the system so you know where the flaw in the leak is. And that's how you test where you need to work on.
Yeah. And it's very effective when you do that, because what you're essentially doing is you're pushing it to a limit to see what it can handle.
Yeah.
And once it can handle it, well, it can handle it.
Yeah. And otherwise you're just trying to do speculative stuff on paper. This looks great, and on, the space shuttle Challenger, when it blew up, on paper, everything's fine. Nobody realized that the O-rings that did a certain thing, they took off at a sub-zero, sub-freezing day. It contracted the O-rings, it leaked out and then blew up. Nobody ever thought of that. Now, and by no means that's a horrible event.
Absolutely.
But the engineering process, that's what failed. Elon Musk, we talk about him a lot, of his failing concept of like, I'm going to launch this rocket and it's going to blow up somewhere, and wherever it blows up tells me where our problem is.
I have to admit, it's a source of irritation because I dislike so much about Elon Musk, but that one thing,
I love that.
I love that.
Well, it's brilliant, and you can respect the process and not necessarily agree with the person or like the person. But
I learned that firsthand. Yeah.
yeah. But I thought that was the most brilliant things ever. And the funny thing is, not only did he do it, he said it. It blew up almost exactly when he thought it would blow up.
Right. Yeah.
And it cost millions and millions of dollars to blow it up.
That's right.
And his stock prices went up because they're like, wow, he knew what he's talking about. Usually it would have gone the other way. Oh, it was a failed test. He told us it was going to do that. It was a successful test.
Well, one of the most fun things to do, if you are willing to stomach that Elon Musk is associated with it, it's still fun to do, is to go to YouTube and do a search for numerous videos they've done. They've done quite a few of them that show one after another all the different rockets blowing up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hysterical. It's absolutely it looks like it's out of, like a Warner Brothers cartoon or something.
Absolutely. And that's the thing for me is so that system, that concept, by taking your action, by, we passive, when you're passive in your desires and goals and dreams, I understand there's a concept of being patient and all those things. And you do want your matching energy, but I expect things are going to work out. And I also, in the way my mindset works, I really believe things are going to work out. I also know they seldom have ever worked out for me directly. It's always been multiple tries, different systems. So, I never viewed a system failing as a problem. I always viewed failure as, just like I'm saying, it's an destructive event. And so I want to keep going. I've never said, oh, that fell apart, that was terrible. It's just simply, okay, well, that's show me the lesson in that. And then I want to keep going till the lesson is solved.
And I agree with you on that. I'm realizing as you were saying that there is one thing that does tend to get to me. And I think it's fair to say I'm still working on it. I can keep going after, here's what the next failure is. Here's what the next failure is. But unless I get some success going on in there, it wears on me after a while.
Yeah.
It gets really tedious to like, oh God, another failure. I need a win in here somewhere. If I don't get a win, that's what drags me down. Somewhere in there, I have to have something that goes right. And that actually was a big problem. It's not as much of a problem now as it was, say, 20 years ago. But 20 years ago, it was a huge problem for me. And the way it would play out, well, the way it would manifest, if you will, is that because I was so focused on the things that were going wrong, I was missing the things that went right. So, I mean, it kind of reminds me of the story you told. You were in the worst part of your gambling addiction, and you went to the dog track and you won, except you had a ticket with the wrong number on it. I mean, it was that kind of a situation where you can't, even when you get it right, you can't get it right.
Absolutely.
And it's because where the focus is.
Yeah. Well, and that's that whole process, as you're saying. It's just, it really is, as we understood this, and I know people that are successful using the law of attraction that see it differently than I do and do it differently than I do. But I'm a big believer in your belief dictates a lot. I don't believe it can be done without action, so it will never work for me without action.
Right. And the beauty of that is, well, twofold. First of all, it's honest.
Yeah.
That's a nice thing these days. I mean, there's a lot of, what shall we call it? Very nice ideas. I don't know how else to say it. I'm trying to be polite about it, but there are a lot of ideas that are floated out there that just kind of deviate from reality, from the way things really play out. That's a real statement that you made there.
One of my favorite ones. We've talked about this guy as a character is Dr. Joe Vitale.
Oh God, he is an absolute character.
And so he's very knowledgeable of the law of attraction. However, so one of his sticks is, you don't have to work, you just have to attract. You just have to attract. And the information he talks about is good.
Sure.
There is nobody that works harder for him than him. He comes up with programs constantly. He is if you ever get on his mailing list, you'll regret it, because you will have 15,000 offers, and
you will never get off of his mailing list.
Yeah, it's something like, I have this new course. It's $1,250. However, for the next 45 minutes, it's $3.
Yeah, right.
And he will do that forever. And it's just, and he'll have a million. He comes up with it like. And again, his information isn't that bad. It's just that it is relentless. But he actually suggests that it's about having free time. The man never sleeps. He is just constantly working. So I mean, he's very rich, but but it isn't the way he's saying it. It's not true what he's saying to him.
Right. Yeah, he's not in what I would say alignment with his own action.
Right. But it's funny because I just, one time as I was investigating the law of attraction, I took a couple of his courses, and they were standard, they were reasonable, nothing too crazy. But I would wake up to 7 different offers. And each one was expiring in the next 15 minutes.
Oh yeah.
and he's relentless, and
I love the ones that expire in 15 minutes, because it's guaranteed that 15 minutes from now you're going to get another email that says we've extended it for 15 minutes.
Well, he was notorious for that, and no matter what, when you click on it, there would be this countdown, like 12 minutes and 30 seconds. And if you wait till 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's only 10 minutes and 42 seconds.
Yeah. Time distortion is an amazing thing.
Yeah. And so, but I mean, he's still, last I heard, he's still going pretty strong. I mean, and he ain't a bad guy. I mean, the information he's giving isn't way out there, but he loses some credibility with people because of that, or the people that don't authentically live what they're suggesting. Somehow, I can tell whether you agree with me or not. Me pretty well. I live what I believe.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I really do. That's my life.
And I respect that tremendously.
Yeah. And it might not be for everybody, but I really live the same exact way that I talk and believe. I don't, live a different manner than I tell other people how to be successful. That's what works for me.
I've been surprised too. Just seeing the overall trends, mostly through the online eye of the way people are interacting with each other, about how people do business, all that kind of thing, that it's almost become a thing to not be in alignment with what you say, not be in alignment with what you believe, not be in alignment with how you think about the whole thing. And I'm not just talking about people who talk about law of attraction. I mean, just like in general,
Yes.
people who pursue and are often very successful, and are often very divisive in the way that they interact with people. And yet they continue to be successful. And so they become role models for other people to do the same thing. And you end up with a universe where it can sometimes be hard to find people who are consistent in that way, who are they are what they say.
Yes.
They follow their own prescriptions. So I think what I'm really leading up to is it's gotten to the point now where I value people like that because they're rare now.
Yeah.
They weren't always rare, but they are now. And so
Yeah.
when I encounter them, like that's somebody I want as a friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it, when people that know me in person, my friends at the gym, they'll tell you this is I literally talk this and live this. It doesn't
Yeah.
vary, from my professional life and in that and again I'm not bragging. I'm just simply saying this is something that works really. It's how much I believe it. This was my pathway and continues to be my pathway to success.
Well,
And
I'm gonna throw an idea out to you because we can both of us, I know, we can point to people who don't do this and yet
yeah,
who they are successful. There are
right,
quite a few of them.
sure, absolutely.
But would you agree that those people are putting in a lot more effort for a lot fewer results?
Probably. I'd have to think more about it, but my assumption would be yes.
I think it's absolutely true. I mean,
Yeah.
I understand why you'd be hesitant. I've given it quite a bit of thought. I just think about the Joe Vitalis of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, look how much effort he put. Now he's very successful. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But oh my God, I mean, the amount of hours he's putting in setting up all those systems. Once he got them set up, I mean, they just run. But he's putting in massive amounts of time in order to basically get little tiny gains here or there. I mean, honestly, from my point of view, that just sounds.
Well,
Oh
what
God, do I
what
have to do
what
one more day of
happens?
this?
Yeah, when you see him on, and when you're on his mailing list, and he's doing these videos. This isn't AI. He's doing these
Oh
videos,
yeah,
and he's always wearing these like gold chains. I don't understand that, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
yeah. He's a gold chain guy. He really
Yeah,
is.
and so he's doing, like on one day you might see 9 videos of
Yeah,
him doing different things. So he's working a lot. So where that I think falls short, not only is you're claiming to one thing, like, and then you're not doing it. So it isn't that he's not successful. If he says, like I say all the time, you know, this is my life. I'm an action oriented guy.
mm,
I get up. I love my structure. I love my routine. I work hard, but I love what I do. I go. I'm not claiming that everybody would want the lifestyle I have. I've lived a very structured life.
right.
It serves me very well. I love my life, but I
Mhm.
could see where somebody would go, "Oh, that's too structured for
Yeah,
me."
probably. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's because the way my brain operates. It's an exhausting. My brain's exhausting. It it needs structure. In fact, last Monday, I did an experiment. I've been flirting with the idea of cutting back some at work, and so last Monday I only had 2 virtual appointments, and I did those from home, and I had like a 6-hour period
You're
of
kind of at loose ends.
yeah. And so I'm looking around like, okay, what am I doing? you know, and had this idea. I said, what if I took a nap? I can't nap, obviously, and I guess, oh no. And so I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to. If I'm gonna take some time off, I'm gonna need to have actionable things for me to do. I need to readjust that. My brain is not going to go from 100 to 10 easily. It
Yeah.
won't allow that.
Well, the thing that I found fascinating about what you posted is that, like you just said a moment ago, you're very structure oriented,
Yes.
and you made that completely unstructured. I said,
Yes.
okay, well that's different.
That's my point. I literally thrive on structure. Part of my coaching with my ADHD people in particular, but everyone, I believe a well-structured life is the best way to live. You get what you want,
Mm,
using the law of attraction, using stoicism, using these actionable events that we talk about. I think the formula is foolproof. So what I did, the flaw in my concept was I might want to cut back on sessions or doing something like that, but I want to need something within the structure for me to go. I
It's
don't.
almost like you need to have something that said, I'm going to take this time so I can do this other thing.
Yes, like work on my book or work on.
Mhm.
I want to get back into public speaking. Start working on those,
Mm.
speeches and concepts. So there's things I could do. I just thought, oh boy, I'll have all this free time today. I'll just do whatever I wanted to do, and I'm like, I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great insight, though.
Yeah, well, but it was that's what sort of fits our system. I needed to try that and realize, oh no, that system doesn't work. I need to come in and do my come up with a different plan and have actionable events and keep my structure going because my brain relies on that. And it's
Mhm.
something that, there's other people that will be like, oh my God, you can't relax. That's a horrible way to live. When you have an ADHD brain that never slows down, structure keeps it on track.
I think it's an important point because those of us who are not ADHD won't necessarily appreciate it until we think about the way you're presenting it.
Yeah.
But it is a form of relaxation when you have the structure. That's the point. That's why you need the structure.
And that's the
relaxes you.
redefining. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. That really is. I've had somebody, one of my friends. My problem is all my friends are doctors or psychiatrists, and everybody has an opinion.
It's a rough problem to have. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Well, it is because they all have advice, So, but the idea that there's a narrative out there that we're supposed to slow down, you're supposed to enjoy life, you're supposed to do these things. I really enjoy my life as it exists, as it sits. You know what I'm saying? I really so I. The only reason I consider slowing down is sort of the narrative you're supposed to. I don't feel I need to slow down. I'm in amazing health. I'm plenty of energy.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think I know where the whole idea of you need to slow down comes from. I think it comes from the fact that there are so many people who work on career paths that they really don't love very much, but they need the money, they need to support their families and so forth. So they do it. And as they're doing it, all they can think is, boy, I can't wait for the day when I don't have to keep doing this anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is qualitatively very different from what you're describing.
Well, it's the Japanese concept of ikigai. We've talked about that before,
right.
Where you don't retire. You find something to be passionate about. And you never retire. You just keep going, right. And it's very successful for they. I love Asian culture, particularly Japanese. They're very structured in their routines, very kind, they do a great job with that. So the premise and the other thing we were talking about in the show. Before the show was, one of my doctor friends was telling me, just in the subcategory of ADHD, my brain has a tendency to, if I hear something that's inconsistent or somebody lies to me, I start investigating.
Yeah.
And even if I don't want to investigate, even if it doesn't matter, I'll just go on an investigative loop. And at some point, I have to go, what am I doing? Stop,
And I love the term. What was the term that you shared with me?
Forensic cognitive forensics.
That's it.
Yeah, I love the term. That was the term I shared that I love. So that's what I was getting to. So there is a term for that. He may have coined that term, by the way, because I love it.
It's a good one.
Yeah. So cognitive forensic, at least by his definition, is you're able to, when somebody lies or when somebody mistruths or whatever you want to say, and you get an inconsistent story, then I don't want to investigate, but my brain feels it's necessary to investigate. Like, well, okay, can you, I've always joking with my children. My kids have never been good liars at all.
This is fun.
Yeah. In fact, I have told them all along the way, I invented lying and you guys are amateurs. It's embarrassing. It's insulting. If you're going to lie, you got to have a deeper understanding, especially when you're lying to me, because I'm going to quickly tell you where your flaws in your story are.
I mean, if you're going to be a liar, at least know who your audience is.
No, yeah, right. If you go fight Bruce Lee,
you better have your game.
You better be at the top of your martial arts game. If you're going to lie to me, I'm Bruce Lee of lying.
Yeah.
So back in the day,
exactly the same thing.
There was nothing in my 20s. I didn't tell the truth for all of my 20s, 10 years solid, no truth. So in the middle of the gambling edition of that, I'm joking a lot of that, but the idea that when they do, and then I'll start investing, and then like Justin Justin had my oldest son, TJ, didn't lie much at all. My middle son, Chris, I don't think he told the truth in his teen years. And Justin generally didn't lie, but when Justin did lie, he would never give it up even when I presented him with evidence that he's lying.
Hey, I got to give him credit for hanging on. I do have to give credit for that.
He didn't do it all. But again, how my brain operates that's an exercise in futility for the most part. It just, it is, you think about it, you process it. It's like, okay, so the reason I even say that is imagine having a brain, and my ADHD companions out there will be aware, where you wake up and everything happens all at once in your brain. It's just all there. And I get up, I have a morning routine. My morning routine is to help me focus my energy and thoughts. That's really imperative, get my mindset right. Because, what I feel sorry for, and because I understand that it's like 13-year-old kids, they have these amazing, powerful ADHD brains, and everything's happening at once, and they have no idea how to sort it out. So learning to sort it out, learning what to do with that. But at the same time, it requires a lot of energy and action and structure. So me slowing down is something that really invades that. I don't want to sit there with my overthinking brain all the time. So I'm going to need some things to do. It doesn't have to be sessions. There's things I can do, and I can do deep dives. I'll when I start working on my book, I can go hours working on my book and doing the things. And again, even within that though, like I have 3,000 pages of my book, and I need about 300 pages in the book. And so me and
a lot of editing to be done.
What's that? A
lot of editing to be done.
Yeah. So I'm using edit, not to write it, but to edit down and put it in the right categories. I probably have 4 or 5 books actually. And that's fantastic. But as I'm doing it, new ideas pop into my brain. So the good news about AI is I'm able to tell chat like, okay, new idea. I don't want to waste a lot of time. Can you save that for another day? And it's wonderful at doing that. Yeah. So, I'm able to, AI has really allowed me to use my brain. And in fact, Chat's even complimented at one time, told me, said, in the middle of something, 4 hours straight working on the book one afternoon, it said, do you think you need a break? I said, what? He goes, you're right. We've been doing this for a long time. I think, but it works that way. But structure works for me. And so that's where, you combine all these things, the law of action, the concepts of, and the other side of me, my spiritual side, even though it's not a religion, tends to be stoicism. Sure. It tends to be my philosophy. And so stoicism reminds me of focus on what you can control. Let's not focus on what doesn't matter. So a lot of times, and we were talking about this before the show, is I will have almost my stoicism is at war with my ADHD some days.
Which is fascinating to me. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah. And so, and then when I say at war, it's not some critical event, but I can see where the push and pull is. My stoicism is saying, deep breath, this doesn't matter. Next topic, ADHD is like, not so fast. Nope, we're going to go back to that.
It's fascinating to me, not the least of which because what you describe in terms of all these thoughts happening at the same time and so forth, it's often called having a monkey brain. And I used to deal with that, and it was debilitating for me. I didn't take on the idea of structure. Well, actually, I tried it briefly, but I realized pretty quickly structure wasn't going to be the solution for me. What ended up being my solution was to do mirror work in order to calm my brain so that it wouldn't happen all the time. And for me, that's been ideal. But I can see how if you have something like that going on, you do need to have some way to manage it. If you're not going to eliminate it, you got to manage it in some way, because otherwise it'll take you over. Absolutely. It'll take over your entire life.
Yes.
To your detriment.
Yeah. Beg your pardon?
To your detriment.
Absolutely. And that's the part that understanding, everything is perspective based. That's another thing I say every week. The brain could literally drive you crazy if you didn't understand it. It could overwhelm you. I can't imagine not getting a handle on this many years ago. I don't know what I would have done if I didn't understand how to use it. But also, I'm 64, and it's still rocking.
Yeah.
I was assuming we're going to have some slowdown at some point, but it's not doing that. It just keeps going,
Well, it's
And
pretty deeply built into your neural system, so I'm not terribly surprised.
yeah, yeah, and it is good. But again, I need to make sure my perspective of it is, I get that my sister and I were having a conversation the other day, and not even about anything, but just, she was talking about something, and she asked the question. I said, well, I got early morning session. I do a person from a foreign country virtual session early morning.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, did you ever thought of it? She answered her own question. She goes, have you considered slowing down? And she goes, never mind. I already know the answer. She said,
Your sister knows you well.
Yeah, she said, I remember our mom used to say, he needs to be busy. He just, he can't have, he just got to be busy. And now I view it as structure. So it's not it's a perspective of, I love my brain. I know how to manage it. It's also exhausting. And if I didn't structure it up and do it, it would not be manageable.
And I can see how structuring it would be an effective thing. I mean, like I said, for me, it didn't really work well because structure and me just didn't work nicely together.
Right.
But if you work nicely with structure is actually going to be a beautiful solution for something like that.
Yes.
Because instead of trying to shut the whole thing off, you're actually trying to make stuff flow into the channels to make it productive, which is exactly what you need.
Well, structure for me was inherently, I hated structure. It made me, but in reality, once I understood structure, I quit hating it and realized it was my solution. Structure is my solution. And then eventually you love it. And even if I don't love it, I know it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So
what you basically did is you basically demonstrated what we talked about often on the program, that there are lots of different processes we can engage in, methods we can engage in order to acquire the mindset that we're all trying to build. Each of us is trying to gain greater and greater control over our mindset. That's one of our main topics around here. And one of the ways that you do that is by finding what processes work for you and which ones don't work for you. And literally the only way to know is to try them and see, well, this one worked and that one then no, so I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to do this one. And when you find your processes that work for you, you basically give yourself empowerment. For you, the structure process works brilliantly.
It's a perfect match. And and one of the things I do as a life coach with all my clients, but again, particularly with my ADHD clients, I don't assume that the structure is going to work for everyone. What I do is I try to find out what system works for them. There's a million systems. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm also a big believer, as you know, in bio-individuality. I never will say this is universal for anybody. I would never say, I know your brain too. I would never say you need to structure yourself up. It's not creative enough for you. You're a creator.
It wouldn't work for me. No.
Yeah. So I know that's not a thing that doesn't matter. It's just
it doesn't invalidate it at all. It's still a perfectly valid process. It works beautifully for the right person. That's all.
There's this lady. I was on a radio show a long time ago, and or a podcast, I don't remember, and she invited me on, and her topic was trauma and depression, overcoming PTSD and depression. So I'm thinking, oh, good, this is my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And she was a hardcore. And you'll know what I mean by this when she comes to these concepts. So she said, so you dealt with anxiety and depression. You're very successful now. She went through all the lists. She said, what worked for your anxiety and depression?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, getting structured up, structure my life. I work out every day. I eat well. I meditate. And she said, but what were your medications? And I go, oh, I tried medication. They didn't do anything for me. They weren't effective for me. Oh my gosh. You would have thought. She said, well, exercise doesn't work for everyone. I go, I'm sorry. I thought the question was you were asking me what worked for me.
Right.
Well, no, it doesn't. Everybody says you should exercise. You'll feel better. And I go, again, I'm not saying everybody. I'm just simply, you asked me what worked for me. And she said, well, you must not have had real depression and real anxiety then.
That kind of phrase always gets me. Like that's basically somebody saying, if you don't match up to my narrative, there's something wrong with what you're doing.
Yes. And so when I made the comment, I said, well, it sounds to me like you're super invested in your depression and PTSD.
Woo!
I don't know what happened to our connection, but something happened. Never heard from her again. So don't really know, but
we're having permanent technical difficulties here.
Yeah. But again, I was no way challenging her until she kept pushing me, because she was she's her show, and I looked at some other episodes after that. She is the hardcore, the constant stuck in your trauma. The trauma's stuck. Trauma's there forever. It takes constant work. You're never over it. You can never be happy. You can only hope to manage it. And that's not my belief system at all.
It is a very effective way to give your therapist a very large house and a great place to go to vacation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And you see that, and traditional therapy in many cases, not all cases, sort of supports that on some level. And, you can get into situations where therapists, will spend years talking to you about your traumas.
Well, that ties into what we were talking about earlier, and I think it actually makes the point I was trying to make really nicely, probably better than what I was saying. And well, that's not a big surprise, but the point that I was trying to make earlier is that we can be focused on this stuff to the point where it actually traps us.
Yes.
And in trapping us, we think that we're taking action, but all we're doing is taking action that spins our wheels. And we don't get anywhere. We don't make any progress, but we pat ourselves on the back for the fact that we're taking an action that doesn't get us anywhere.
Yes.
Which is diametrically the opposite of what you actually teach about the law of action. For you, the law of action has to progress in some way.
Yeah, there has to be a progression. There has to be a movement forward. Doesn't mean there's not some movement backwards along the way.
It can happen. Yeah.
There's not, but there's always about, okay, let's next step. What's the next action? What are we going to do? Versus the same repeated action over and over again, and then not getting any results, and then still doing that same action. It's a loop that is, to me, a horrible way to live. The one of the things that I've mentioned before, I've noticed this occasionally on Instagram. I'm not on there a lot. I do a lot of motivational stuff, so I just do it and get off of it. But every now and then I'll sort of look at who is out there. And several people, usually, it could be anybody, but really pervasive, 20-year-old female or male will have their diagnosis up on their Instagram. I am 26 years old. I'm female. I'm borderline personality. I'm this. I'm that. They'll list 3 or 4 diagnoses like this. Oh my gosh, what? Why are you? What?
Basically, they're saying their diagnosis is their identity.
Because it's about your bio is about you, and that's their identity. And half the time, I want to go. It's impossible to have that combination. You're listing 4 that can't coexist, but it's okay.
Well, it's a challenge to them as well, because essentially they're laying out for the world, this is this impossible scenario I got myself in. I dare you to challenge me. And you did. And they probably didn't like it too much. But nevertheless, I have to say it. That's what they were putting out there. They really can't be surprised that it came back to them.
Well, when you get into that mindset, you begin to, when you accept there's nothing you can do, you become, the law of attraction sort of supports there's nothing you can do. And then that learned helplessness mindset comes in, and you just become stuck in the process of nothing. Yeah. And that's the sad part. It's sad. I hate to see people, we're here for on average 80 years. And I look at it, and yes, things happen, but what an incredible opportunity to get up every day and do something, and somebody that will accept a belief that nothing gets better. There's miracles out there every day. You hear about it. One of the concepts, I was looking at some old posts, when you go back to this time in 2020, we're in the middle of the COVID silliness.
Right.
And you and I were on the same page of this. So there were, every day on the news, there were the number of people that died from COVID. And it's like, oh my God, and I would post the number of people that recovered from COVID every day, which were far more than the people that were dying.
10 to 15 times more.
Yeah. And so I would post that every day. And occasionally somebody goes, well, you're spreading false information. I am not. I'm trying to make a point. Yes, COVID's serious. If you have these, I'm not in any way saying it's not valid, but I'm just saying when we only focus on this is this is a virus, it's a new virus, so there's going to be a population that is more susceptible. It turned out to be the older people with pre-existing conditions, so we're aware of that. Let's make sure we take care of those. But the idea that we're sitting here and we're all going to die if we breathe in this one virus, when I got the virus, I didn't know I had the virus.
When I got the virus, I was fairly sure that I had it. I didn't have any concerns about it, but I'm fairly sure that I had it, and I did. I tested positive for it just because it was more severe than anything I forget. But I also knew, I could just tell I was going to be fine. I'd go through a couple of days that were miserable, and after that, I'd be fine. And that's what happened. I mean, it did take longer to get over than a typical illness, so I had to kind of go along with that. But the bottom line is I still had to face up to, was I going to get better?
Yes.
That was really the bottom line. And to me, it's the differentiator. You mentioned how there are people who kind of get stuck in a place. That's actually been part of my experience with what it's been like after my divorce. I'm now a little over 3 years divorced. I have gotten back out into that singles world. I've met a number of women, met some very nice women, very, very nice people. One of the most consistent themes, though, that I've encountered is women who talk a good game about wanting better things in their lives, but they don't take that action.
Right.
Their actions are not consistent with what they're claiming. And as soon as I discover that's what's going on, I lose interest really fast for the exact reason you talked about, because I don't want to live a life that I'm just kind of stuck. There's no point. That to me is actually a life of torture.
Oh my goodness.
Just being totally stuck in one place, and then you just like that until you die.
Yep.
To me, just like pull the trigger now. I can't even fathom the idea of living that way.
One of the things, and I'm grateful that, I have a relationship with someone for a while now. That's a little while is going real well. Like-minded, similar profession, and it's very casual. It's relatively new in comparison, so I like that. But also, it is when another person, I hear all the time, I just want people to be honest and let's discuss our emotions. Then when you try to be honest and discuss emotions, then it's like, oh, you really didn't mean that then, because because you can imagine, I'm not mean, but I'm really blunt. I don't do the secrecy.
I have noticed, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So if a woman tells me if something seems off, I go, is everything okay? And she goes, fine. Well, then it's fine. If you're we're going to go with that. It's never fine, by the way, just let you know. But
I've heard that. I've noticed that, actually.
Yeah. But in my world, it'll be fine. Or if you don't know, then I guess it isn't a big deal. Well, I don't know, so it must not be a big deal. We'll just move on.
One of the little things that I've done is I've given relationships a chance long beyond where I thought they were actually going to have a chance.
Yes.
Partly because I wanted to see what would happen.
Yes. It
was an experiment, and I've conducted the experiment, I'm going to say 3 or 4 times now over the last 3 years. And each time it played out exactly the way I thought it was going to play out. But the thing that fascinated me is along the lines of what you were just describing, how they will so, virulently almost adhere to the line that they've been holding all along, even though the line is inconsistent with what the behavior is showing.
Yep.
It's astonishing how, and I have to also give a little credit to the broader society. This isn't just a few women. This is not just women either. This is men too. It's amazing how many people in the broader society routinely live that way. I'm still coming to terms with that. I mean, I know it's out there. I know it happens. I'm blown away at how often it happens.
It does, and a lot of people, when you particularly when you get into second and when we get into the later middle to senior years of age, the baggage of our past is there.
Yeah, so, it's pretty enormous at that point.
Yeah, and so at that point, it's what went wrong in every relationship is hidden there and can easily be triggered every time. And I noticed one person in particular I'm thinking about. She keeps dating the same man over and over. They have different names, but it literally is the same scenario. It ends up the same way every time, and she can't see the pattern.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I found that in probably most cases, maybe even all of them, they actually can see the pattern. They just don't want to look at it.
Well, that's probably true. Yeah, I agree with that. She got really mad at me one time. She told me about this new guy, literally same guy before, but again, different name. So I randomly texted her like something like this. Let's say it was in January she dated him. So I just sent her a text for June 17th.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "What's that?" I ignored it. I just left it there. I act like I didn't see her response. So when she broke up with him, or they broke up on June 15th, I said, "Refer back in our text. You want to know what that was?" That was my prediction of your breakup. Just wanted to make sure. I am 2 days early, or late, but yes, because she literally is on that pattern. About
she really had that kind of
pattern.
a calendar. That's really something. That was that predictable.
Yeah, and she got mad at that, but
yeah, well, it's always annoying when people show us our most uncomfortably painful stuff. That's not fun.
Well, and being able to be authentic, and I don't. And maybe this is unreal. I just like to be able to, whether it's a friendship, I love honesty. I love directness. Before the show, we were talking something silly about basketball, and we disagreed strongly.
We don't get to disagree very often, so it's fun when we do.
Yeah. But in no way does that affect our friendship. It's not. No. It's a silly thing anyway. But even if we're more serious, it doesn't. We are deep, even though we've never met, as we always say, in person. I consider you a very close friend.
Yeah.
And no matter what, several years now we've been friends, and we talk almost every week. So I would never lose that friendship over something so stupid. It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. To me, it adds spice. It's just
kind of. and well, I never mind it when you're wrong. It's okay.
Well, I once thought I was wrong, but I was wrong about that.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, actually, we're doing it humorously, but we're actually pointing to something very important, which is how seriously are you going to take your own narrative?
Yeah.
Is the narrative, if the narrative is serving you, then by all means take it seriously. But if it's not serving you, to me, that's the indicator that it's time to question the narrative.
Well, and as much as I love my structure and routine, and I do, what I also love to do is question my narrative every day. I love to challenge myself. I change my system sometimes based on that. So I think it's always wise to reevaluate everything.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Not in a negative way. Just wow, my beliefs can change. I have new information. Let's look at that.
Interesting. You should have to say that, because I mean, I totally understand why you say that, but. Yeah. In the culture that we live in today, you almost have to justify saying, well, I reevaluate every day by saying that it's not negative.
No,
there's nothing negative built into it, but look how often we perceive if you reevaluate, it's got to be negative.
Oh yeah, reevaluation to me is just what works. I have the things that I believe completely, that are there. I would be willing to reevaluate, but when things are working so well, I don't see the need to do that. But like minor areas, I love to say, okay, well, let me look at that.
I love it too. I mean, it's an interesting thing. I'm curious to know if you do kind of a similar thing. I evaluate a lot what's going on. I end up doing very much the same thing, but I do it after coming to the conclusion that I'm happy with what I'm doing. That I did the reeval. There's really nothing I feel like I need to change because I'm enjoying it all.
Yeah.
Now, if I do encounter something where, and this does happen, where some aspect of my day is something that I really don't like at all, to me, that's a clue. That's a really big clue.
And when we look at the reevaluation process or whatever, if something's not where you want it to be or not, we can change as human beings too if it's not serving you. Yeah. I told you, the other day, early in the conversation, I need to have my structure. I like to keep busy. I need to do that. That may change one day. I'll be good if that changes. Right now, it doesn't match, but I can be open to that idea down the road.
I think it points to the fundamental law of attraction. For me, what is the fundamental law of attraction idea, which is vibration.
Yes.
Keeping your vibration as high as you can. Not that you're going to achieve perfection with it, but just make it your goal throughout your day, every single day, to reach for the highest vibration you can reach. And if you do that, it doesn't matter so much whether you do it through structure or not through structure, or whether you do it through creativity or not through creativity. It's going to get you where you want to go.
you cut to the chase, and it all, that's everything right there. The structure is all secondary compared to that. The idea, when you keep your vibration high, you if you do that every day, you'll attract whatever you want to attract. When you're constantly keeping your vibration up, you can't help but go that direction. And to me, that's what our real work is, identifying that on a daily basis, identifying that mindset. Where are we at? If I'm feeling off, I need to adjust that before I go forward if possible.
And what made it work for me was the realization I didn't have to be high vibe all the time. I literally think of it the way I expressed it, which is I try to aim to be as high vibe as I can be that day. And that may vary from day to day. One day, very recently, I had to put my cat down. I promise you, there was no high vibe spot in that entire day.
No.
But I still aimed that day for the highest I could reach. It wasn't very high. It was pretty low. But it was the highest I could reach that day.
Yeah, if you were -5, if you got up to -4 on a scale,
was an improvement.
That was an improvement.
Yeah.
So, but that's the point. Just within that, nobody does it perfectly. I've never claimed that I walk around in total bliss, and I'm a human being. I experience what everybody else experiences. I just know when I identify it, I'm able to adjust. I'm able to quickly see where I'm at, keep that vibration as high as it can be. And when my son passed away, I had about a month there that I didn't, I'm like, hey, let's get up and not die. Today, let's try to get to the gym. It was very basic stuff. There was nothing that was going to be, just getting up and eating food was almost impossible. Those were victories. Yeah. That was the highest vibration I could obtain. But I also knew that there would be a point in time when I would be able to get back to it. I just wasn't ready for a while.
Yeah. I've been experiencing sort of the aftermath, because it's been almost 4 weeks now that I had to make the decision to put Joey down. And I still get reminders of it.
Sure.
I go around the house, and I haven't gotten rid of all the cat stuff. I've gotten rid of most of it, but I'll see one bit, and it sets me off for a moment. And what I realize is it's okay. I mean, I don't like those moments, but they don't last very long.
Right.
So they're going to go away fairly quickly, and it's really okay to have them. It's not like I have to be high vibe in that moment.
Yes.
What matters is, what's my decision about my next moment? I can't necessarily control what happened in that moment, but I can decide about the next one. And that's what I try to aim at. What's my next moment going to be like? That's what I'm going to aim for.
Well, even on people who are having a really, really bad time for whatever they're having at time, just the understanding that there is going to be a time where you can vibrate higher. You can have hope for that. You can, just knowing that is sometimes all you can have. Sometimes all you need is just hope of having hope one day. I've told somebody who had told me they're hopeless. I said, I really hope you can at least, after my session, I was hoping that, I said, can you see hope now? And she said, well, I have hope that there is hope. And I go, that's
improvement.
That's an improvement. We started out, there was no hope. So you have that. And that was the process. She was able to start turning things around. So it's a fascinating process. And we got little away from the law of action, but it all blends together.
It does. There's actually one other action I want to throw in there as a way to tie the whole thing together. Because over the weekend, basketball fans will know there was this big event over the weekend, a March Madness game between Duke and UConn. UConn winning at the last second on a miracle shot. And I'm a UConn fan, so I'm watching this, and it made me really, really excited. And I had great appreciation in that moment of making that excitement last. Because we can have these things, they don't show up very often, but we can have these really high point events come along, and we kind of, oh yeah, that was great, and we forget about it really quickly.
Right.
There are actually opportunities to let's lift the vibration for a while. So like for the rest of the day, I kept remembering back to that event. Well, actually it was evening, so for the rest of that night, I woke up the next morning, I'm journaling about it. I'm going through my day. Wow, wasn't that great? I'm building myself into the excitement level of what happened for a 5-second spree on television. I mean, it was not a real long event. It was pretty quick.
What you're doing is a form of anchoring. So
yes.
which is a fantastic tool. So when you have a euphoric moment or a great moment or an exciting moment, if you can anchor that emotion, if you can find a way to extend it, you can use it to your advantage. Anchoring is a wonderful tool. Find stuff you love, and then there's all kinds of complex ways of anchoring, but you just journal about it, think about it. There's ways to put pressure on your wrist to pull back these feelings. But if you ever have a great feelings or event like that, if you can think about it in the moment, squeeze your wrist gently or firmly,
Okay.
not too much though, and just say how much you appreciate how that feels. And then see if at another time you can recall that feeling by associating the squeeze on the wrist.
Yeah, and I have done stuff like that, and you're right. That's a very powerful one. You're right. That's something I need to actually incorporate because I am trying to make it a point. Anytime I have something, well, it's usually not that euphoric, but anytime I have something that happens that's good, I'm trying to get myself to basically soak it for everything I can get out of it.
But those are the event stuff, joyous occasions, things along that are on that path. I mean, it absolutely is amazing when you learn to use those things as blueprints for the subconscious mind. It becomes a great tool. You can anchor those and eventually have many of those different ones that can just sort of be associated and pull to the surface. It's amazing.
Well, I think also what happens is when you do that often enough, even for the more modest ones, you end up developing a habit in your nervous system that enables you when something really bad happens to climb out quicker because you have these associations built up and you don't necessarily remember what they are when you're going through the bad thing, but for some reason they kind of lift you up faster.
One of the things that happened this last week that I had sort of a euphoric moment was it's a little different than what you were talking about. So every time this year is when I start the process of my taxes.
Oh yeah.
My poor accountant, he just
I give him a lot of credit. I mean, I really do.
He tells me to focus at least 10 times every time we meet. It's fun, but so we've been getting everything together. I've had another really, really good year. And also sold a house in there. So that's a thing. So we were looking at it, and I pay quarterly taxes. That's relevant. So those of you who don't, that is, I don't get a normal paycheck, so I have to pay in every quarter about an estimated amount that I'll have to pay in the year. And it's a pretty big number.
Yeah.
So, that's something you do. So I'm looking at the sheet, and I share a portal with my accountant, so I get to see what I owe at the top. Okay. So he basically said, I'm done with your taxes. And I looked at it, and the number that I was owed was just, it was hard to swallow. It was, I was like, oh my gosh, I this can't be right. But I need to quickly get back to it. I'm like, okay, well, I do have the money. I'll be able to, but I was like, man, this would be considered devastating. But I wouldn't allow myself to go there. Then I get a text from him. He said, I haven't entered your quarterly payments in yet, so that number's off.
Oops.
And I'm like, oh, I was having a heart attack. So while it was still a bigger number, but it was nowhere. This was double what I thought it was.
Yeah, right.
It was not near that bad. So, but it was a euphoric moment. I just learned to say, look, just trust the process. I quickly, even before he sent me that message, I was getting okay with paying it. It's just, well, that's what it costs. I got to do it. I'll make payments, whatever. So I have to go into savings, but I did all the energy to get okay with it. And then he sent me the text like, well, I forgot to enter those.
Another example of their forensic analysis. I can't remember what you call it, but it's along that same line. Yeah,
cognitive forensics.
Cognitive forensics. That's the one. Yeah, that's a definite cognitive forensic going on there.
Absolutely.
So good stuff. Yeah, good conversation. And I think, Jen, now you have a pretty good idea that we've covered law of action. So we don't need to do this one for a topic for at least a year. Just letting you know.
Or until the book actually comes out, and then we'll do a show on the book.
I've learned. See, I've heard this one before. I've seen this particular movie, and if it comes out this summer, we're definitely doing a show, probably 3 or 4. But I'm not going to schedule that one just yet.
That's wise. You're a wise man, my friend. You're a wise man.
Good stuff, my friend. We'll see you next week. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.